Hey y'all, let's talk about this new stencil. It's my vintage girls. So I might have a slight obsession with vintage photos, as you may know. And so I created this stencil of 4 vintage girls. They are cute. They've got their little socks on. They've got a little hair bow. You could just dress them up any type of way. And I am so excited about this one. And I cannot wait to be able to explore with you all of the things that I want to use my stencil in. And so what I'm doing here is I'm taking this mixed media paper pack and I am doing a stencil with Payne's Gray here and a cosmetic wedge, and I'm just stenciling all over because I actually am going to take this out and attach it to my journal. So we're going to give it a minute to dry here, and then I'm going to go ahead and tear this out of my mixed media paper pack. Now, why mixed media paper pack for this? I am going to be using watercolor, and just like any other medium, watercolor reacts differently depending upon the paper that we use, and I also needed something to be structurally sound. So I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut around all of the girls, and then I'm also going to leave myself a little bit of a tag, like you see here on the girl on the left, who has that extra little flap, because I want to attach her into my journal. So before we do that though, I'm going to make a hot mess and do some watercolor. Now, if you're new here, you may not know that watercolor is not my medium of choice in most aspects. However, what my goal was here was to create a very loose, painterly, watercolory effect, if that's a word. And so I'm taking a few of my different watercolors here. I have this watercolor tin that are actually, most of them, if not all of them, are all watercolors by Daniel Smith. And I just moistened that before I got on camera to make sure they were nice and ready to move and groove. And then I'm going to go around here and add a few highlights and lowlights, and just creating a little tiny bit of dimension here as we move into these girls. Now, the fun of this stencil is we can do them every which way. When I showed my mom the stencil, she was like, oh, she has 2 sisters. So she was like, oh, I would like to be able to do something with this with the sisters. And so she was like, I would only need 3 of them. And so the cool thing is you could always use just 3 of them. You could use 1 of them in a piece. They are fashioned in a sense that you could actually just use them and actually cut them up individually if you wanted to, as an idea to use this stencil. They also have those cute little kneecaps that you can accentuate. And again, you can tell I'm not trying to be very particular here. I'm actually just trying to get a tiny touch of color onto this watercolor paper. And so the watercolor paper takes this very nicely with the watercolor paper. This is mixed media paper. Takes the watercolor very nicely. And so I'm going back in and just adding a little bit of pink cheeks to them. And then we've got to decorate their little dresses. And so I'm going to choose a few different colors to kind of use with their dress. You could keep tinkering with these just as long as you wanted to. But I'm going to move on and kind of take a look at their jackets that they have. And so again, I'm just kind of allowing the watercolor to puddle where it wants to. And you could also get a very similar effect if you wanted to use like watered down acrylic paint. I think you'll be able to get a very similar design. And then I am going to go around and kind of create some brown. I think I use brown, some type of brown color for their shoes and boots. And then, of course, I'm going to coordinate those jackets with the socks that they have on. So, I hope that you'll go check out the stencils at Stencil Girls. And yeah, I can't wait to see all of the fun things that all of you come up with, because I know that there are so many of you that can come up with some really awesome inspiration for these stencils. So I can't wait to see what y'all come up with. But you'll notice here that I'm going back and working in layers back and forth with the watercolor. Don't forget to add the little hands. I think I got a little happy with that yellow there and kind of covered up one of the hands. And you can hear Denali and Piper in the background saying hey to y'all. I think FedEx or UPS or somebody just pulled up. Oh, goodness gracious alive. And I am going to add a few little coordinating socks, making sure that our little hair bows is popping where we want them to be, and rosying up those cheeks once more, because as the watercolor dried, it kind of just got a tiny bit lighter. And then I'm adding a little bit of pink along the knees, because you know what, when I was a kid, I felt like my knees were always bruised up. And so I'm going to put this into my journal using that flap there very easily. I'm just going to connect it with some masking tape. The back side would be a very fun side to come up with your own story about these girls, or do a little bit of journaling. You could really do whatever you want to do. But I hope that this really inspires you. Make sure to go check out the stencils at Stencil Girl Designs, and I look forward to seeing you create with these too. Till next time, toodaloo.